Time for another eye-opener on this channel. And funnily enough, this is actually another cartoon I grew up watching. The Fairly Oddparents. What, you thought SpongeBob was the only childhood Nicktoon? No, this is actually another close competition at the time. Except I actually phased out of this show way before modern SpongeBob. It was really the last season that threw me over the edge. But we're not here to talk about that. Given how this show regained popularity thanks to a successful reboot, which I haven't watched yet at the time I recorded this, but am pretty enthused to watch, I feel like now would be a good time to talk about this show, especially since I actually finished marathoning every episode from this show. And I'm pretty glad I did because, man, I forgot how much I loved this. And seeing what it has become during the last few seasons of the show, and then afterward...
Crocker, my love. Let's fail some twerps.
Nothing serious yet, but keep an eye on it.
I've truly gained a lot more respect for the first 5 seasons of the show, even 6 through 8 to an extent. It's kind of a similar feeling I had with SpongeBob looking back on the older seasons. But how does it hold up? Well, I could say the first season was a great start. This season is an example of quality over quantity. In fact, the worst list really only consists of, 2 episodes I consider bad, while the rest range from okay to fantastic. But I'm not going to scrap out the worst list like I did with the Bluey video. Not just because this is a really short season, but I do actually have a few things to say about some of the worst entries. And you should probably know the rules by this point, but for those who are new to the channel, these are all going to be based off of my opinions, and you may disagree with me on some of them. And if you'd like, feel free to comment down your favorites and least favorites down below. And once again, I'm doing the same method I did with the Loud House video. I'll start with the worst entry, then the best entry, rinse and repeat until we're finished. But anyways, let's get started with the top 5 best and worst Fairly Oddparents Season 1 episodes. A partnership. It's Cosmo and Wanda's wedding anniversary, but there's a bit of a misunderstanding between them as Wanda acts upset towards Cosmo because it's a tradition in this milestone. But Cosmo, not knowing this, mistakes her anger as genuine and leaves her to go back to his mom, who was unaware of their marriage. And she uses this fight as a way to split Cosmo and Wanda apart, so Timmy must find a way for the two to reconcile. Just to reiterate, I don't hate this episode. In fact, it's actually pretty decent. It's an episode that essentially dives into the relationship between Cosmo and Wanda, and it's nice to have episodes that show us why they love each other. It's kind of a rare treat considering in the later seasons, the relationship is painted a lot more bitter, to a point that I'm almost convinced that if they didn't have a kid, I don't think they'd still be together. So it's a treat to see moments like this in the show.
Let's get something straight. I'm not bright. Big words confuse me. I have the attention span of a rodent. And Wanda loves me anyway. She makes me happy. And that should be enough for you.
With that said, the episode does lose points for the plot being a bit unoriginal. It's just a traditional misunderstanding plotline, meaning there's going to be a few contrivances that could get under your skin. Like a false anger anniversary. I get fairy tradition is supposed to be unusual, but I would buy a styrofoam anniversary more than false anger. And you gotta love how in the end Cosmo's like, it's our anniversary? Like they seriously had to go that way? Whatever, I still consider this a decent episode. It does have a good showcase of the relationship between Cosmo and Wanda, and the episode manages to throw in a couple of funny jokes here and there as well.
Good thing you didn't marry her.
But I did marry her.
Oh, you've gotten the milk. Bring your single self in.
But when you stack that against the other episodes from this season, then one of them is going to end up in the bottom 5, and it just so happens to be this one.
Thanks for sending Wanda away for the day so I could decorate the room. What sort of meaningless task did you wish for her to do anyway?
Oh, something she'll never be able to do, even with magic. For the last time, learn a trick. Sit up, roll over. Oh, care about something other than yourself, you stupid cat. Mr. Whiskers?
Tiny Timmy. In this episode, Timmy is studying the microscopic world but is bored by his studies. So Cosmo and Wanda decide to prove him up a shrink suit to explore the microscopic world in person. However, as the group splits up, Vicky accidentally eats Cosmo and Wanda, and because Timmy's suit can't grow back to normal size, he has to go inside Vicky's body to find Cosmo and Wanda and wish himself back to normal. The concept is pretty much the main appeal of this episode. I'm fond of stories that have us explore the microscopic world, so it was kind of a given I was going to like this episode. The different locations presented in Vicky's body are very creative. From how the digestive system is basically a flume ride, one of those voice boxes in the vocal cords, or seeing tiny men inside of Vicky's brain. They deadass did Inside Out before Inside Out was even a thing. That is so funny. Even though the Inside Out duology is better. This is essentially Squid-tastic Voyage from SpongeBob SquarePants, but actually good. They could have so easily played with those vor jokes as they wanted to. But thankfully, outside of maybe one instance, they don't really do that. In fact, if anything, there's rarely any sort of explicit organs presented. I mean, they show Vicky having a black hole instead of a heart. It's jokes like this that make this a much better episode than it could have been. If they did something like Timmy crashing into an actual heart, then yeah, I would have had a problem with it. But thankfully, they don't do that, so overall, it's a good episode. And a good way to start out the top 5.
Look at the size of this food! If I could drink everyone in the world down to this size, there'd be enough food to end world hunger!
Oh, that's beautiful, Timmy!
But not why we're here. Look, Big Candy!
The big problem. In this episode, Timmy hates being a little kid, being picked on by bigger bullies, missing out on some activities with his parents, and having to deal with a babysitter. So he wishes he was an adult so he can enjoy doing adult activities. But he soon discovers adulthood isn't all it's cracked up to be, not helped by the fact that he can't wish anything because he's not a kid anymore. And when he soon finds out he's gonna lose them, he must find a way to make himself a kid inside to bypass the rules and keep his fairies. Again, I do not hate this episode. And as the first episode of the main series, it does its job pretty well. It establishes the main character and his lifestyle, as well as giving us an idea about what each episode is going to be about. So what puts it on the worst list? I got 2 words for you. Adult stereotyping. I said this before and I'll say it again, I do not like adult stereotyping in media. I despised it as a kid and I still do today. So by all accounts, I should hate this episode. But to be fair, it's not the worst I've seen of it. Like I said before, as a pilot, it does its job perfectly fine. And they do sneak in some funny moments here and there, specifically with Vicky.
He's gone! Something could have happened to him! Or worse, something could happen to me because something happened to him!
Really, the good and bad pretty much balance it out to make an okay episode. If it wasn't for the positive moments, then I would guarantee this would be in the bottom 2. That just shows how much I really dislike this trope. And while it's not Grandma's Kisses levels of infuriating, it's still a bit annoying. Overall, it could have been better, but could have been a lot worse.
Finally, I can see a grown-up movie! Ew, gross! Adults making out!
You know, I bet Tilly would think this is gross.
Ah, it burns!
Father time. Timmy wishes for laser vision to deal with his chores, but in the process, he destroys his father's prized trophy he won when he was his age. After Timmy's scolded for his actions, Cosmo suggests going back to time to stop his dad from winning the trophy so he couldn't destroy it in the first place. Timmy successfully does this, but ends up getting his father sent to dictionary school where he becomes ruler of the world. What's worse is that because he lost the trophy, he lost his chance to woo the love of his life, that being Timmy's mother. And because of that, Timmy never existed, so he loses Cosmo and Wanda. It's up to him to reverse the time paradox and put things back to normal. I'm not gonna lie, I was very skeptical going into this episode because the beginning didn't really leave that good of a first impression. I mean, this entire episode could have been avoided if Cosmo just shut his mouth. Plus, the writers just had to open a can of worms by throwing in a meta joke.
Well, you know, you could have just wished yourself 10 minutes into the past and stopped yourself from melting the trophy in the first place.
I could have what?
That's not cute, I'm sorry.
Like, I'm never gonna suggest heat vision again, man. Oh yeah, I remember that now.
You're not really winning your case, are you? Thankfully, the rest of the episode isn't nearly as awful. It's really the heart of the episode that saves it for me, giving us a little look into Mr. Turner's childhood. It gives us character development for Timmy as he learns how much the trophy means to his father, because it's what led to him having a family in the first place. And giving us a glimpse of what would have happened if he never won the trophy in the first place. It's a bit overkill, but you kind of get a bit of an idea. And it makes the whole reconciliation between Timmy and his father earned. It's a nice way to end such a good episode. Topped off with some really funny and humorous moments, as to be expected with a meme generator. So yeah, while it didn't start off well, it was able to pick itself back up, leaving us with an enjoyable and heartfelt episode.
Guys, I'm gonna go find my future dad.
Cool, we're gonna stay here and find ourselves.
Hey, there we are! Let's dance!
Dog's Day afternoon. Feeling jealous of the treatment Vicky has been giving her dog Doidle, Timmy decides to wish he could trade places with Doidle and get the special treatment. Timmy is really enjoying this up until he soon realizes why he's getting this treatment. He's scheduled to get neutered. Afraid of experiencing the pain of getting fixed, Timmy tries to get Cosmo and Wanda to wish him back to normal, but they don't understand him because he's a dog. So he has to find a loophole to this before it's too late. This was pretty close to being a bad one. In fact, let me get the saving graces out of the way. I do kind of like the stakes behind this episode. Timmy having to wish himself back to normal so he doesn't get neutered. That's actually pretty insane. It's also a pretty funny episode.
He sure is hungry.
No, that's just the way all kids eat cereal now. Face first. I'm hip.
And I also really like the little workaround, where Doidle still has the skills to speak dog in Timmy's body. It's a nice little workaround for the resolution of the episode. But that actually brings me to my biggest problem with the episode. The fact that Timmy can't speak in Doidle's body. Like, it fascinates me that no one thought that this would be a problem. And the fact there are no red flags going in Cosmo and Wanda's mind that Timmy's trying to wish himself back to normal, especially when things start to escalate with Doidle in Timmy's body, it's hard not to think, maybe we should put things back to normal. I get it, it's a kid's show and all that. But still, they could have at least tried to work around that issue. But you want to know what's even dumber? At the end, we see another one of Vicky's pets and it could talk? And Timmy sounds like he can understand him?
Hey, Spunky!
My steak, no way, I'm eating here. My, get away, you losers. My, stop it, don't touch. Come on, get away. He can find out on his own.
It's just so dumb. It's only really saved by some of the humor and the resolution, culminating in a mediocre episode bordering on bad.
Because tomorrow's your special day. The day you get fixed.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Chin up. At a comic book convention, Timmy is eager to meet his superhero idol, the Crimson Chin. However, after discovering it was a phony cosplayer, he wishes to meet the real Crimson Chin by poofing him out of his comic book. But in the process of getting to meet him, the Chin discovers he's just a work of fiction, which puts him in an existential crisis, losing the spirit to fight for justice, which affects all his comic issues. So Timmy wishes himself into the comic book to try and undo his mistake. When that fails at first, Timmy decides to wish himself as a sidekick to help him out with saving his city. Now this is just a fun episode. Despite not being that much into superheroes, I just love how this episode goes the mile with its theme and concept. From the art style of the comic book world, from the different superhero and supervillain names.
Great jaws of justice! Spatula woman!
But that's just a geek in a costume.
No, don't look! He's God! Country boy! With one of his deadly exploding pig grenades!
And the various different gags that play into the theming of this episode.
I'm going to bed.
But it's 10 a.m.
Not in this panel.
And it's nice to hear Jay Leno having a really fun time with the role of the Crimson Chin. Like, you could really hear him playing into the role of a comic book superhero. And I also really like the little arc that Chin goes through in this episode. Him finding out that he's just a work of fiction and learning to look past that. It's nice to watch. Plus, we get to see Timmy try to integrate himself into the main canon. And in a way that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I do consider this a great episode. And a fantastic introduction to this new character.
Actually, Timmy, you saved me from myself. Wow, that was schmaltzy. Who'd you say writes my comic book?
Some 40-year-old dude who lives with his mom.
Any money in it?
Lives with his mom.
Right.
Dream Goat. In this episode, Timmy gets to meet Dimsdale's famous animal, Chompy the goat. But upon meeting him, he notices Chompy is depressed. That's when he learns how he yearns to be free and with his mate. Feeling bad, Timmy lets Chompy free, but in the process, Vicky is wrongfully accused of the release of Chompy and is arrested for this action. But due to his eating guilt, he ends up wishing for random things in his sleep after that. He tries to stay awake to prevent this, but that fails. So he has to either inevitably confess his actions or try to get Chompy back to Dimsdale. First episode of the show I can comfortably call bad. This episode essentially follows a liar's act story, where after he released Chompy and people mistake Vicky for being the one who did it, his guilt and him trying to keep his secret just creates a bunch of hijinks. That is the entire episode, and it is boring. I have so very little else to say about this episode that it hurts. Aside from the silly idea of how Dimsdale portrays this goat as like a town hero, the episode just has nothing else to offer. It's formulaic, unfunny. Frankly, Chompy's the only one really keeping this from the bottom spot. But not even he could really save this episode from being a total snooze fest.
Now, let's take a peek at what your subconscious is saying.
Vicky's innocent! I'm the goat napper! Me! I don't deserve to be a hero!
Whoa! Time out! I'm not good with this psycho mumbo-jumbo.
Christmas every day. In this half-hour holiday special, Timmy loves the wonders of Christmas with presents, no school, and spending time with his parents without any babysitters. So he wishes every day was Christmas so he can enjoy these wonders every day. But it becomes a problem as Santa is so overworked, and the problems soon start to become more noticeable that Dimsdale and the world starts to retaliate towards Christmas and Santa. Timmy tries to unwish this whole situation, but not only are Cosmo and Wanda powerless because they lend all their magic to Santa, but the other holiday icons, including the Easter Bunny, Cupid, Baby New Year, and the April Fool, kidnap them to use the remaining magic they have left. Ah, the classic old story of wishing every day was Christmas only for it to end up being a problem. I've seen this kind of story tackled before in Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. And while this episode isn't nearly as good as that segment in that film, I do still consider this a great holiday special. While you could predict some of the outcomes presented in this episode, I do kind of like how they execute these moments. Like how Timmy wishes Christmas was every day more out of spending time with his family rather than just, well, the obvious. The fact that the fairies of Fairy World actually have a connection with Santa Claus. With how they transfer all their magic to him so he can deliver presents around the world. I also like how they present his workshop as like a business. As without magic, he's basically just a businessman voiced by...
Well, I don't care. It's ho ho ho, not ho ho who. Fix the sign.
Ah! Tom Arnold! What the hell's going on? It's also cool to see other holiday icons in this episode. And having them go up against Santa Claus to regain their holidays is really engaging. And it's also a funny episode, and it also has a very decent song.
I wish every day could be Christmas, 'cause every other holiday reeks. New Year's Eve's for Mom and Dad. The Easter Bunny's eggs smell really bad. Valentine's Day always makes me sad.
'Cause Timmy just can't get a girlfriend.
Not much else to say, it's just a really great holiday special. Like, you really can't do wrong with a holiday special. Oh, right. Well, we don't really count that.
Merry Christmas to all! And to all,
One per year!
The same game. After being bullied by his dental neighbor for having buck teeth, Timmy wishes that everyone around the world looked exactly the same as each other, so no one can compare one to another. But that fails horribly, as when he gets back at his neighbors for making fun of him, they find a way to put themselves on a higher pedestal over others. Not only that, but because everyone looks the same, the fairies around the world can't find a respective godchild, which is a problem because if they can't make wishes for their godchildren, they get magical buildup, where fairy dust builds up inside them until they explode. So it's a race to find Timmy and unwish the wish. I remember singling this episode out as my least favorite when I was a kid, but this was all before seasons 9 and 10 were even a thing. So when it came to rewatching this episode as an adult for my marathon, I thought, alright, maybe I might find something good in this episode. See what it was trying to say, and maybe I can get some admiration out of it. No, it's just a really bad episode. While it's no longer my least favorite episode of this show, trust me, I shouldn't need to explain why. I still didn't really enjoy this episode. The problem I have with this episode is that the wish Timmy makes is so dumb. I can get behind some of Timmy's wishes because they make sense. Timmy wishing he was adult so he could see what it's like? Timmy wishing he was Vicky's dog to get luxury, Timmy wishing for every day to be Christmas so he gets to spend time with his family. The incentives behind them feel substantial. Here, he's just wishing everyone looked the same so he can get back at his neighbors. I guess to give credit where credit is due, the whole "it's what's inside that counts" is a decent message to give to children. Plus, I'm a fan of Gilbert Gottfried's vocal performances.
I mean, it can't go wrong with Iago.
What's the word I'm looking for? No! Only boys with perfect teeth like mine can have a ball as fun as this!
But that's all this episode has going for it. Well, except for the introduction of magical buildup, which is probably the thing I hated the most about this episode when I was a kid. Body horror, in my opinion, was one of the most gruesome ways to go out, and just seeing them blow up makes me feel uncomfortable. So yeah, I really didn't enjoy this episode. I didn't care all that much about what was happening here, outside of what I just mentioned. I consider this to be the weakest witch Timmy has made this season. While I did give it credit for having a decent message, I've seen it done better before and since. And not even the humor or its guest star could really salvage what was a bad episode. Easily my least favorite episode of season 1. But don't worry, we're gonna get to some much worse episodes later on in the future.
Timmy?
Chet.
Timmy?
Chet!
Now are you Timmy?
Power bad. Feeling like his video game is so boring and juvenile, Timmy wishes for a video game that's actually challenging. However, the game he wishes up uses so much power that any usage of anything electronic in the house could blow a fuse. This is especially a problem when Timmy's friends Chester and AJ transport themselves into the game, and if they lose all their lives, or if the game is turned off while they're still in there, they'll die. So Timmy has to either convince his friends to take off the helmets or finish the game before the power goes out, while Cosmo and Wanda try to prevent Vicky from using any more power to prevent the game from shutting down with everyone in it. Now this is a much better start to the show. While its plot is simple and nothing really all that nuanced compared to later on in the show, it's the execution that makes it such a fun and enjoyable episode. More so than the one it was paired up with. While the big problem established each of its characters and their main role in the show, this I feel establishes how each episode will play off much, much better. I'll admit, it does establish a few things that become more of a problem in the later seasons. Like finding something that prevents Timmy from unwishing something, without the rules getting in the way of it, mind you. But to be fair, it was the first time they did that, so it could have been worse. And aside from that one hiccup Timmy made, you do actually feel the stakes in this episode. One small mistake and Timmy and his friends could end up losing their lives, or the power could go out. I also like the way Timmy's video game is presented.
Wow! The classroom of Dome level!
Hey, look!
Apparently, if you don't get through this class, you spend the rest of your life as a janitor. There's a lesson in that.
It also helps that this is probably tied with Father Time as the funniest episode of the season. And it didn't even need memes to do that. At least I don't think.
Hello, Timmy. Let Aunt Gertrude pinch those chubby cheeks of yours.
I hope she means my face!
Overall, I can't really find much else wrong with it. It's engaging, funny, creative. It's a total package, making for what is easily my favorite episode of season 1.
Guys, take off the helmets, quick! Don't freak, dude. We still have 2 lives left. That is one bad babysitter!
So those are my favorite and least favorite episodes of season 1. It's overall been a good start. But that leaves the question on if the rest of the seasons can keep it up, or if they were just lucky with their first season. Well, I mean, I kind of had an idea, because like I said, I did actually finish this marathon a while back. But you'll just have to wait and see what my thoughts on seasons 2 and onward are. And with a new Wish coming to Netflix at the time of recording this, I'm hoping it will be as great as everyone else says it is. Almost everyone. But anyways, what are your favorite and least favorite episodes of season 1? Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you all for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all for when I talk about season 2.